We can see the volume builds into the highs, but it's not really driving the tick at all, is it? So what happens up here? Well, that's going to be some algorithmic selling once that delta gets trapped, of course. So we can start to look for that trap. We can start to look for that delta getting exposed, and obviously it becomes quite a nice sell away from the bond here. This is the ZB contract. And you can see that the delta gets trapped, it gets a little bit exposed, and then it does get reversed, and then there's a heavy sell surge to the downside. Into the bottom edges, nothing much that we can really take a look at. There's nothing really happening in here of any particular interest. As we come into this phase here, you can see the delta's trapped badly here. You can see that little delta trap there, all these selling deltas getting absorbed by the big boys, and obviously the takeaway from that was pretty fast and furious. The deltas managed to recover out of that trade quite nicely, but into the highs, you can see again the delta's getting trapped into the high print up here, and looking and showing the probability that the market's going to reverse. So you still read it and analyze it exactly the same way, Taylor, as you do the S&P itself or the NASDAQ itself. So it's still got the same basic and background storyline. If we were to look at the NASDAQ, let's see if we can spot any algorithmic trades. Let's see if we can spot any, since you brought up the question. And nothing else much is happening anyway. So let's see if we can spot any algorithmic trades. Well, there was an algorithmic sell coming in here, wasn't there? Not the best one I've ever seen, but there's definitely an algorithmic sell starting to show up here. You can see the candle volumes, the deltas are bullish, the divergence is there, the candle's closing at the lows, so you're going to be working into that as a short trade. So you start working into these sell areas here, and you get a very reasonable response to the downside. Not much in here. There's nothing I can really identify that's giving us any real significance, but you can see the deltas getting a little bit ahead of themselves again into this uptick, for example, here. The price not really improving, so a sellable opportunity into this phase here, and you'd obviously be looking for that for a sell trade. You can see it dropped down quite nicely. The buyers came back in and pushed the price up, so nothing to be done there. The top edge, nothing much happening just now. Basically, the top edge, nothing happening just now. So when we zoom back out, we can start looking at some of these storylines in the background. Of course, coming into the cash open, you can see the deltas got massively exposed at the top edge here, didn't they? There was a very, very significantly overexposed buy-side delta. You can see that the tick is massively divergent against that, closed actually towards the lows. So all those buyers have to be unwound through that phase, haven't they? This whole pin rejection here is just commercial sellers. So obviously the takeaway from that sell was just unbelievably strong. Brilliant trade for anybody that's following the delta narrative for this type of storyline, guys. Is there anybody that uses this, or is it just a bit of a waste of time me showing it? Is there anybody that actually has an interest in this this part of the jigsaw puzzle? I know Taylor's asked the question about bonds, but is there anybody that's been watching these storylines and try to identify some of these little techniques to get a bit of business done? Remember, the whole point about this is to start recognizing divergences between the two lines and then between the lines and the price. So in other words, what you're trying to do is you're trying to reconcile the delta with what's happening in price. If the delta is the same as what's happening in price, there isn't anything to be done about it. It's just doing what it's supposed to be doing. The big situation develops when the delta and the price aren't doing the same thing, and we have a sizable divergence between these two lines. You can see that in the background, there's not a lot of buying that's pushing this price higher just now. So that looks more like an exhaustion print, and that's pretty good news, because we've obviously got a divergence in the background. So this looks like an exhaustion type print at the top edge, but obviously we haven't yet got any algorithmic evidence. So what we would like to see, of course, is we'd like to see this yellow line going back to the highs, the price trading around about the mid price to the lows, and the purple line just dropping off a little bit, and that would be an algorithmic top edge at that stage. And we could start looking for that absorption to flip the book. So we can see that price is going up with the deltas, so that's still that withdrawal of liquidity above, that exhaustion print still above, but we're not really getting any algorithmic ideas into this chart just at this point. Let's just watch to see if anything does show up. It's still on a 1 minute chart, so we maybe have to take it down. We maybe have to take it down a time frame or two. But remember, on top of that, we've also got the likes of the Prem kicking off in the background, and it's always worthwhile paying attention to the Prem, of course. When you're watching these things, you're always watching for things like Prem making higher highs or lower lows. You can see the Prem on this chart. Again, this is a 1 minute chart, so it's not very detailed, and I'd like to obviously be a little bit more detailed in that type of environment. So what I'll do is I'll take the Prem down a couple of time frames to the 30-second charts, and I'll take the Nasdaq down to the 30-second charts as well. Just so that we get more examples of things happening. You know what I mean? It's kind of boring looking at stuff and nothing happens, so it'd be better just to get a better look at this.